Expectations are still sky high for UCLA next year with Mick Cronin. But if they fail, does that mean he's on the hot seat, or is he already?
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. It's your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Go check it out on FanDuel.com. Where we get started today, Mick Cronin. Is he on the hot seat? Well, obviously not. That's not the case. But it's a slightly warm seat. It's one of those seats where it's like, okay, he hasn't underperformed except for the last two seasons, right? He's got a Final Four in his resume most of the time except for this year. When he gets to the tournament, he's a second weekend guy. What's really held him back? Has it been a miraculous shot, a COVID meltdown taking away the tournament? Was it another two half-court prayers from Gonzaga and a Caleb Love three-point shooting fest? Or is it UCLA has underperformed during the year and they find themselves running into teams who get red hot? What has it been? Well, I'm going to lean more that he's been super successful in the beginning, got destroyed by a terrible recruiting class in 2023, asked about the NIL, said, all right, begged, complains, brought it to everybody's attention that the NIL was not where it needed to be, that the Dodgers got free agents, even though the Cincinnati Reds wanted them to, right? That was a somewhat paraphrased quote of what he said about how UCLA, that if they're getting compared to as the Cincinnati Reds as a free agent destination in Major League Baseball, when you are literally in Los Angeles with arguably, if not the most decorated program in college basketball they are, with iconic legacies, players, dynasty of all dynasties in all of sports in UCLA's history, all across every sport, that the expectation is national championship or bust. Pretty much, right? In nearly every sport, you could argue you need to compete at the highest of levels, and men's basketball is it's the premier sport. Let's be real. So Mick Cronin sitting here and finally getting those players last year, getting a top 10 transfer portal class. What he currently has, arguably the same thing. But now the expectations are a little interesting. Are they watered down because a guy left? ESPN's latest way too early top 25 after a lot of the players have declared for the NBA draft, after some of these players have now found new places to play, like Mark going to Michigan, or in UCLA's case, securing the talents of Donovan Dent to the tune of $300 million plus in NIL funding towards him coming from New Mexico to UCLA. All right. What the Bruins need is a super successful campaign. But are we going to look back as this year as what doomed Mick Cronin was a failed trip to Spain for a die, that he came back and things broke down in negotiations, and UCLA or a die or one of them or both were like, all right, well, you can both kick rocks. Well, if we're kicking rocks to the tune of a 20-12 year, your second round team in the NCAA, is that enough to frustrate the fan base, frustrate the athletic department? Remember, UCLA's got a new head man as a chancellor, Julio Frank. Does this put Martin Jarmond as a guy in the AD spot ready to pull the trigger and say, no, we're done with Mick Cronin, or as the guy who is one of the youngest active head coaches with 500 wins, gets his team to the tournament? They always get better. You could argue they grow as young men. Each player is their own different case, but they learn. He loves, he teaches, he complains, he yells. He is in your face, like it or not. Is UCLA done with it? Is this just Ben Howland 2.0 with less moments, less Final Fours, in a COVID in between, right? In a new era, just a louder Ben Howland with Mick Cronin, where the offense just sputters at times. You're like, okay. Or is this a guy where just 2 years, a blip on the radar that can turn into something super successful here in 25 to 26? I'm going to tell you, if UCLA is another mid-tier Big Ten team, if they're a 20-12, you hear more quotes from Mick Cronin, as much as he always rampages in the media. Generally, when he goes on the rampage, UCLA is immediately successful. You can look at the numbers. I did an episode earlier this year about how when Mick Cronin goes after his players, sometimes publicly, sometimes loudly where the public can hear him from the locker room, they generally succeed right away and are better off for it and tend to play some of their better basketball towards the end of the season, where they're almost always a tough out, not including the second half of the Tennessee game. Generally, whether it's in the Pac-12 tournament against Oregon a year ago, making it to the second round in all these tournament games, usually they are, whether they're shorthanded, they're injured, things have gone awry, they always have played their best basketball, their best defense, and are preparing to compete. Okay, this is a team that's 2 years ago was on the short list, fully healthy of being a national championship level team that won the Pac-12 and was one Achilles injury, a shoulder tear from, I think, making Dan Hurley a no-name, right? Like they were that good 2 years ago where I think UCLA could beat UConn, and we'd be talking about UCLA right now. Nobody wants to go to UCLA. But that's how things change. An injury, some bad luck there, a half-court prayer there, and UCLA is just a Sweet 16 team, not a Final Four and an Elite Eight team and a team that got to the Sweet 16 the year before. No, now it's okay. Heartbreak City. If they do not make it to where they're expected to be, right? ESPN has UCLA as a top 15 team, down from top 10, even though you see John Rothstein expecting top 10. I'm believing in good things. UCLA should be in the preseason top 10, maybe not top 10, but top 15, top 25. Our own Locked On College Basketball hosts disagree whether they're a top 5 team or they're literally a team not deserving of being ranked. All right? That's why it's so tough to pin what this UCLA team is going to be. There's no superstar left in the portal to go turn them. This is a coaching job and maybe one more late transfer commit away from Mick Cronin that could go under the radar, be a blue-collar guy, play some defense, and play hard. But they already got that in a shooting guard and a 3 in Jamar Brown. You got some blue-collar guys coming. You got some projects in the portal, which is not exactly what you wanted at the players playing in premium positions like the 5, where UCLA struggled when they had Bilodeau at the 5, when Mara was not in the game, when they had to do that over and over. They could still be successful, but if Cronin plays this game, they got the funding the last 2 years, and it leads to first weekend exits, there will certainly be a lot of talk next year at this time, probably before this time in March, that Cronin is not the guy. He is not the guy. Because you would have a missed NCAA tournament, the funding to go get 6 guys, to go get 10 guys in the transfer portal, including the most expensive, arguably, right, in Donovan Dent, one of the most expensive, one of the most premier players. If that doesn't pay off in NIL, in NCAA March Madness credits, going deep in the tournament, it's a tough chore to say, you got to go win a national championship. But a first-round exit, I mean, please, second-round, obviously first-round exit would be embarrassing. First weekend exit, that would be a little frustrating. A team that does not compete in the Big Ten would be excruciating. Now, again, top 10 transfer portal, the reason for hope and the reason for hype for this team is you look at the comparisons to the Final Four team from 4 years ago. He's got returning guards, an actual point guard, a guy who can shoot in Skyy Clark, some players who have strong defensive tendencies or scoring ways, undersized center where he utilized that, some potential in other spots, but guys that have been there now a year plus, a talented kid in Donovan Dent who's coming in, who is absolutely fantastic. I think fits everything that Mick Cronin wants. Could have gone to Kentucky, could have gone elsewhere for potentially even more money, and he chose to come back home. I think those are good signs to UCLA can do something in March. But they're frustrating, and they have this same record, and they can't handle Big Ten travel, and Cronin's still complaining about certain airlines after the tournament and everything. I think the act will get old. So the results have to come, and Cronin knows it. He just thinks the results have to come in March when they should be coming to the tune of an elite regular season next year with, at minimum a second weekend, right? You're pinning everybody healthy, expectations high. If they fall short, Mick Cronin could very well be looked at with a hot seat into next offseason. I expect a good season. I expect a team that can go make a run that has similar characteristics to a team or teams that Cronin had in the previous miniature generation, right? When they had the Juzangs, the Hawkeses, the Tiger Campbells of the world, you find some guys who can shoot. You find an elite big man or somebody who plays much better, that overachieves, and UCLA can't succeed. I'm not saying they should fire him. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. But if they underachieve, they're going to come calling, everybody. And I would be frustrated too, because it'd be a little tiresome and very worrisome that 3 years in a row UCLA has fallen well short of expectations now that they are actually competing with other schools in NIL, in transfer portal. You can't have it both ways, because you're going to lose some of these guys next year to graduation, lose them to the NBA draft. And with no high school commits, you're not building for the future. Almost doesn't exist anymore, but building somewhat for a infusion of youth. You're not building for next year's. The time is now. And Cronin's got his team, and he's got to make the statement. If he fails to do so, I think the biggest statement UCLA is going to make is pack your bags. Okay? I don't expect them to fall short and go 20-15 or whatever weird record they could fall in. I do expect good things. But the problem is, with those big expectations, the drop-off will mean the end of the Mick Cronin era. Are we ready for it? I'm not sure. I'm not sure he's ready for it. I know the expectations are big, and he understands that. But the Bruins have to perform in this next season. He's not on the hot seat, a little bit of a warm seat, but it can get hot in a hurry. Well, the NBA playoffs are almost here, and that's what FanDuel's here for, all right? If you're a new customer, go bet $5, and you can get $250 in bonus bets if that bet wins. If you win that first $5 bet, go check it out with FanDuel, right? You can use the app. It's super easy to use. And check out player props, whether it's three-pointers, assists, steals. You combine all those together in a same-game parlay live after the game tips off. You can have a huge payout there. So check it out with FanDuel.com and check it out during the NBA playoffs. That's the place you wanted to be with FanDuel. That's going to do it for us here at Locked On UCLA. Tell me your thoughts. Comment, subscribe. What are your thoughts? Download everything. Is Cronin on the hot seat? Or am I a hater? Or am I way too hopeful for thinking that this team will be good and will succeed? Whatever it might be, the Bruins have to achieve this next season, or the naysayers will get even louder. But let's end on a positive note. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.